Today I'm playing my old gaming buddy and his orcs against my Necrons, and guess what? I'm using the Convergence of Dominion fortification, and it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this battle report. Right, today I am playing my buddy. It's Necrons versus Orks, and I can't wait to tell you about this game. It was a lot of fun. I hadn't seen my buddy for quite some time. We had our first game of 40k in what seems to be forever a couple of weeks ago. He played his Blood Angels and I played my Necrons 1500 points, and I won that game pretty easily. So this game I wanted to take a bit more of a fun list. In my 1500 points list previously I had the Void Dragon, so I immediately dropped the Void Dragon. I thought he was far too powerful for sort of this gaming experience, so the Void Dragon was out. I then thought about some fun units I could put in the list, and immediately the Convergence of Dominion, the fortification, came to my mind. I mean, the models are awesome, I love the miniatures, but I haven't played them yet, so I thought this is the opportunity. So I took the fortification. I was then thinking, well, what other units haven't I really played? Which units aren't necessarily that great? The fun units. And then I immediately thought of reanimators. I mean, I just don't play reanimators very often, so I thought, let's add a couple of reanimators to this list. Now, in doing so, I previously had only one unit of warriors in the list. I only had one troops choice. I thought I definitely need more warriors, so let's make this a battalion, and I added in 2 units of 20 warriors. Now I decided to try something new with these warriors and actually have mixed guns. So 10 Reapers and 10 Flayers in each of the units. Usually I would just recommend having the same gun on each unit, like a dedicated unit to a dedicated job. But I wanted to try something different, and as I said, this list is purely for fun, so why not experiment? My thinking is the Flayers would give me a longer range gun at the beginning of the game, and I'll kill those off first, and then the Reapers will come into their own later in the game once they're much closer. Then I had a look at my heavy support. I had 2 Doomstalkers in my last list. I thought about maybe adding another Doomstalker, but I didn't want that to be too powerful. However, I wanted to make sure I did have enough heavy support. I didn't know what my buddy was playing, but I had a sneaky feeling he would be playing Orks, and if so, that he would have quite a few vehicles. So I thought I did need some Doomstalkers in the list, but not necessarily 3, because I thought that would be just, well, too powerful. So in the end, I decided to take a Technomancer to support the Doomstalkers. So still only 2 Doomstalkers, but they'll be shooting on 3s rather than 4s. I wanted to stick to my Scorpic Lord because he just looks cool on the table, especially when he's with my Scorpic Destroyers. I kept my 6 Scorpic Destroyers in this list. You need that nice assault element. So those were in the list. Then I added a Chronomancer to my HQ choice because, well, they can assist the warriors, of course, the 5+ invulnerable save. My Scorpic Lord did have the Veil of Darkness still, so of course I'd be veiling those Scorpic Destroyers. My original list had a Hexmark Destroyer and 6 Ophidian Destroyers in reserve. I had to drop my Hexmark Destroyer to get some Immortals in the list because of course I was taking a battalion, so 5 Gauss Immortals. And then I dropped 1 Ophidian Destroyer to give me 5 Ophidians, deep striking in, and that was my list, coming in at 1750 points exactly. I thought the list wasn't too overpowering, but then it wasn't too weak. I had some good elements. I've got some long range big guns, I've got some assault elements to the list, some scoring elements, and hopefully it should be a lot of fun. Now in terms of dynasties, I also wanted to just experiment and try some things out. So I took a custom dynasty. I had Butchers to give me +1 inch to my assault roll. And then I took Healthy Paranoia +3 inches to my ranged guns, which would be pretty useful for my Gauss weapons. And then for my all game protocol, I had Shoot and Fall Back. So I was ready to go. Okay, so now for the Orks. Now my buddy has been painting his Orks because he's been sending me some pictures of the paint jobs. However, of course, some of them aren't painted. So you can see we've got the guy on the left, which I believe is some sort of war boss. and then we have the guy on the right with that big gun. I'm sure you all know his name, but I don't know his name. But whoever he is, that was his 2 HQ choices. The guy on the left was his warlord. He then had a big squad of shooter boys, another big squad of shooter boys, and a big squad of assault boys. None of these were beast snaggers, they were just normal boys. He had 4 meganobs in a truck and 2 battle wagons. They both had the, what's it called, the thing on the front. What's it called, that thing on the front? Death roller, that's it. They both had death rollers on them. He had a unit of Gretchen stroke Grots and a unit of Storm Boys. And he had a unit of looters. He took the Blood Axe clan, which I've not really seen before, but I thought, well, this could be quite interesting. I rolled a dice to see which mission we were playing, and I rolled a 6, the Scouring. Previously, we played no secondary objectives, and I thought it would be good to introduce the secondary objectives but not make it too complicated. So we used the standard ones that you get in Nephilim. That, of course, is assassination, grind them down, and behind enemy lines. However, for the main mission, we only used the standard primary section. We didn't use the little bonus section. So 4 points for one objective, 8 points for 2, and 12 points for more. We then rolled off for attacker and defender, and I rolled another 6. I chose to be the defender, and we deployed. I deployed my 2 Doomstalkers to the left on an objective behind terrain, although I was touching it so that I could shoot. I had the Technomancer near them with 2 stones near the Technomancer. The idea was I was going to do the action and move those 2 stones. I was going to leave 1 stone in my deployment zone though, right at the front. I hid the Reanimator behind it to give that some protection. And of course I wanted to make use of the stone's ability to help with leadership, especially as I have 2 squads of 20 warriors. So I kept that in that position, I wasn't going to move it. The Chronomancer and 2 units of warriors deployed either side of those stones. And then on the right hand side I had my Immortals with the other Reanimator. The Reanimator of course in range of the warriors. At the back I deployed the Scorpek Lord and the Scorpek Destroyers ready to vow. And of course I put the Ophidian Destroyers in reserve. My buddy deployed a unit of boys on the right hand side with a battle wagon behind, grots behind a piece of terrain, and then some looters with one of the characters on top of the terrain. Those boys at the back weren't actually on the table, he just he left them there by mistake. And then we've got on the other side of the table the other battle wagon and the truck with the mega knobs in. So we had boys in the battle wagons and we had mega knobs in the truck. And they were hiding behind the piece of terrain there on the left. And then I discovered the rule which the Blood Axes have, being able to put units in reserve. My buddy put his looters in reserve and also the big squad of boys. And then it was time to find out who was going first. We both rolled a dice, and guess what I rolled? Another 6. That's 3 6s in a row. So my turn 1, I do all of the shenanigans, the 5+ invulnerable save, the Reanimators use their beam, and I move the warriors forward. I actually advanced them forward because none of their guns were in range anyway. The Technomancer did an action on one of the stones. I didn't vow the Scorpek Destroyers because I thought there's no point, most of my opponent's army is in reserve. So it was time to shoot. I couldn't see the 2 vehicles on the left hand side, and after the looters had been put into reserve, it left his character very exposed. The closest unit in the open, well, pretty much in the open. He was standing on the piece of terrain, and of course the clan trait, I believe, gave him an extra +1 save. But even so, my Doomstalkers shot in. Well, one of them did, and I did 19 damage to that one character, killing him, of course. So that also gave me assassination points, so I scored 3 points there as well. So that was the end of my turn 1. The other Doomstalker couldn't see anything to shoot, and we moved in to Orks turn 1. He moved the 2 vehicles onto the objective on the left, and he moved the grots and the battle wagon onto the objective on the right. He had nothing to shoot, and that was the end of Orks turn 1 and the end of the first battle round. For grinds them down, of course, I'd killed a unit, so I got 3 points for that. And then we moved into Necrons turn 2. I was on 3 objectives, so scored 12 points. And then I did my usual tricks with the reanimators and the chronomancer, and I moved forward. I brought the Star Steel right in his deployment zone. Even though we had behind enemy lines, of course, fortifications can't score objectives, so I can't get those points. That's a bit of a shame because potentially they could be quite useful for this particular purpose. However, I got them in range of the grots and also the vehicles, so I had a choice of shooting. It was at this stage that my buddy realised he hadn't deployed his bikes. He had a unit of bikers. He'd recently painted them. How could he forget them? Anyway, he did. So we decided maybe just put these in reserve and they can come on from his table edge in his next turn. So on to the shooting phase. My warriors, with that extra 3-inch range on their guns, was able to shoot at the grots. I killed a good chunk of them. The Starfield shot into them as well. There was just a couple left and then they died from morale. My first Doomstalker shot and destroyed the truck and the Mega Knobs got out, and my other Doomstalker shot at the battle wagon, although it only got it down to 12 wounds. And that was the end of my turn 2. The Orks were on the objective on the left, however the battle wagon was just out of range of the objective on the right. He'd actually advanced the battle wagon and only rolled a 1, so he was just out of range. So just 4 points for the Orks. Okay, movement phase, and this is where they made their move. So the boys got out of the battle wagon. They were looking at a charge on my warriors, along with the Mega Knobs. The war boss stayed back on the objective. He brought his bikes in at the back there, and then he got his other boys out on the right hand side of the battle wagon. The Storm boys deep striked in just over 9 inches away from my warriors, near those boys, and then the looters came in from the table edge on the right hand side. All of the units that could see to shoot shot into the 2 units of warriors, and I lost 5 in total. The boys on the left hand side shot into my Doomstalkers and took a couple of wounds off. And then it was time to charge. The Mega Knobs went first. They did make their charge range. The boys also attempted to get in, but they failed their charge. And not only that, so did the Storm boys. I think the Mega Knobs were a little concerned at this and they hit me really badly, not killing a single warrior. Can you believe that? In return, I think I did 1 wound. So end of battle round turn 2, and I'd scored another 3 points for grinds them down. We moved into Necrons turn 3. I was on 3 objectives, another 12 points. After doing the action in turn 2 on the second Star Steel, I was able to bring that in from reserve. I brought it in on the right hand side. I wanted to block some of his other reserves from coming in on that table edge. He had a big unit of boys still to come in. I brought my Ophidian destroyers in, ready to assault the bikes at the back, and then I vowed the Scorpec Lord and destroyers over in the corner, ready to assault the war boss or the battle wagon. My aim here was to try and kill the war boss for those 4 points. I fell back with my warriors from the Mega Knobs. Of course, my protocol all game is fall back and shoot. And then I shot out the Mega Knobs with my Doomstalkers. My warriors shot into the Storm boys. I killed all of them apart from 4, and they didn't foul their morale. And then we were in the assault phase. I assaulted my Ophidians into the bikers, although I did have to re-roll with a command point. And then my Scorpec destroyers rolled their dice, and their assault range was 2, double 1. My Ophidians attacked the bikes, and I got them down to just 2 bikes left, and that was the end of my turn 3. Okay, turn 3 for the Orks. They were on 2 objectives, so they scored 8 points. The bikes fell back onto the objective at the back on the left hand side, and the Storm boys went into the middle of the table, eyeing up my warriors. The last unit of boys came in from reserve, and they came in my deployment zone from the side edge, of course eyeing up my Reanimator and my Immortals. After a little bit of shooting and not much damage, we went into the assault phase. The Storm boys assaulted my warriors, and guess what? I destroyed them all in Overwatch. However, the Ork boys were next, and they made a big charge, and they got into assault. The Orc boys in my deployment zone, they did shoot at my reanimator, they did 1 wound. They went for their charge, and even with the reroll, they fouled. The Orc boys on the left assaulted a Doomstalker. I did Overwatch with both Stalkers, but hardly killed an Orc. They got into the assault, and in the ensuing assaults, they did a few wounds off of my Doomstalker. Nothing major happened in the assault phase. The boys took a few warriors off, I took a few Orcs off, and that was pretty much it. I did have a bad dice roll in this round, although I can't remember what it was for, but that was my dice roll. Look at all those ones. So that was the end of Orc turn 3 and Battle round turn 3. Again, I'd scored grinds them down. As we moved into turn 4, we looked at the clock and we were rather pushed for time, so we decided this would be the last turn. I was now only on 1 objective, the one where the Immortals were. I'd lost the middle one because the Orcs had more boys on them. I'd lost the one with my Doomstalkers because I had objective secure boys on that one. So yeah, just 4 points. I moved the Skorpek Lord towards the Battle Wagon and my Skorpek Destroyers towards the Battle Wagon, the bikes and also the Orc War Boss. I shot the boys in my deployment zone with everything that I could and I managed to kill 10 of them. My Doomstalker not in the assault shot at the Battle Wagon and then I assaulted the Battle Wagon with the Skorpek Lord. I managed to destroy it. The Skorpek Destroyers assaulted both the bikes and the War Boss and I managed to kill them all. That was a good result. I assaulted with my Phidian Destroyers and also the Reanimator. I was trying to get rid of these boys to stop my buddy from scoring the objective. However, it didn't go that well. I killed a few Orcs, but certainly not enough to take the objective away from him. And that was the end of my turn 4, my last turn. Orc's turn 4, he was on objectives and more than me. He scored 12 points. Then he made his final attacks. He brought the Battle Wagon up. He brought the Looters up. He got into assault with the Orc boys at the back into my warriors and tried to kill as much as he could. The Doomstalker got down to 6 wounds on the left there with the boys. I actually won the assault in the middle of the table, and although this was the last turn, my buddy should have scored his primary objectives at the end of the turn. We didn't. We did it at the beginning of the turn, but that's just the way it was. And that was the end of the game. The Orcs at the back there are just dead. So let's have a look at the final point. So it was actually pretty close. Primary, I scored 27 points and the Orcs scored 24. We were of course playing behind enemy lines, which I haven't mentioned during the video, but I scored 4 points in turn 3 for having 2 units in his deployment zone and 1 unit on turn 4, so 2 points for that, so I scored 6 points. The Orcs had 1 unit on turn 3, 2 points, and 2 units on turn 4, so also scoring 6 points. Assassination, not quite as good for the Orcs. They didn't kill a character, 0 points, and I killed both of his characters, so I got the maximum of 7 points that I could. Grind them down, again the Orcs didn't win that in a single turn. I won it in all turns, so I scored 15 points. So the final score was 30 points to the Orcs and 55 points to the Necrons, and of course we didn't play painted. It was a really fun game and I really enjoyed playing an army where I just wasn't trying to take the best of everything. Sometimes you just need to put models down for the fun factor, and that's exactly what we did. So I really hope you enjoyed this game. If you did, then here's a link to all of my other battle reports. Some fun, some competitive. Go and check them out.